Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Let's jump right in. Ever heard of interaction effects? It's not just some academic jargon, I promise.
Yeah, they're actually pretty powerful once you start to understand them.
Okay, so today we'll use an article to help us out.
Sounds good.
It's by Herman Aquinas.
Aquinas.
Yeah, it rhymes with beer.
Okay, got it.
The title is Estimation of Interaction Effects in Organizational Studies. Pitchy.
Definitely rolls right off the tongue.
But honestly, this stuff is way more interesting than the title lets on.
Oh, for sure. Aquinas really nails it when he talks about how often the answer isn't a simple yes or no, but more like, it depends.
It depends. So are you saying those it depends moments are like little clues to these interaction effects?
Absolutely. It means the impact of one thing actually changes depending on another.
So it's not just simple cause and effect. It's like cause and effect with the twist. Can we get a real-world example here?
Sure. Let's say you're looking at how risk-averse a company is and how that impacts its attractiveness, to investors or maybe potential employees.
Makes sense. You'd think a company that's super risk-averse might be seen as less attractive, maybe not as exciting.
Well, research by Turbin and his colleagues found that it actually depends on whether the company's public or private.
Wait, so the same level of risk aversion could be good or bad depending on that one thing, public versus private.
Exactly. It's not just about how risk-averse a company is on its own. It's about how that interacts with the type of company it is. That's the essence of an interaction effect.
Okay, wow. So are these interaction effects everywhere then, like across all sorts of fields?
They are. Guinness points out they pop up in psychology, management, you name it. Like, think about stress from juggling work and family life. More juggling, more stress, right?
Seems pretty straightforward.
But hold on. Williams and Alliger found it can actually depend on whether you're at work or at home.
Hold on, so I could be more stressed about work stuff when I'm at home, even if I'm not working, just because of the context.
Exactly. And that's just the beginning. These interaction effects are everywhere, but they can be really tricky to spot.
Okay, so if they're so important, why aren't they more obvious? Why are they so hard to find?
Well, even with the best research methods, we can get tripped up. Imagine you're looking at a tapestry with all these intricate patterns, right? Sometimes those patterns or interaction effects are hidden by the bolder threads.
So we get distracted by the more obvious stuff. What are the bolder threads in this analogy?
It's those main effects, the things that seem to have a direct impact. Aquinas makes this interesting point. Sometimes those main effects can be so strong, they actually mask the interaction effects.
So the reason we miss those crucial interactions could be because we're so focused on the more straightforward relationships. That seems kind of backwards.
It is, and it shows how important it is to think carefully about our research design and the tools we use. Are we measuring the right things? Are we taking into account how different factors play off each other?
So you're saying even seasoned researchers can miss these interaction effects.
Absolutely. Aquinas highlights how even common research methods can sometimes lead to inaccurate results. We might think there is an interaction effect when there isn't, or the other way around.
Whoa, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
So what can we do? How do we make sure we're not misinterpreting our data?
Well, there's no easy fix. But Aquinas emphasizes that we need to be aware of these potential pitfalls. We have to be more careful about jumping to conclusions based on just surface-level analysis.
So it's about digging deeper and realizing that things might be more complex than they first appear. It sounds like a life lesson, honestly.
It is both, actually.
Yeah.
And it leads us to a big question. Why should any of this matter to our listeners? How do these interaction effects play out in their lives?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to talk about these ideas in research, but how does this actually help someone make better decisions or understand themselves better?
Okay, let's bring it down to earth. Imagine you're a manager trying to get your team motivated. You might think, okay, bonuses will lead to better performance.
Seems logical, right? Reward good work.
But what if it actually depends on how much autonomy each person has? What if some people thrive on being independent while others need more structure?
Oh, I see. A bonus might be great for someone who likes to take initiative but feel kind of controlling for someone who prefers clear instructions.
Exactly. Interaction effects show us that those one-size-fits-all approaches don't always work. It's about understanding the nuance, the it depends factor.
So instead of just saying bonus is equal motivation, a smart manager would think about those individual preferences and adjust their approach.
Precisely. And this goes beyond management. Think about marketing, sales, even just understanding your own reactions to different situations. Understanding interaction effects helps you ask better questions.
So instead of just accepting those simple cause and effect explanations, we start to think, okay, what else might be going on here?
Yes, it's about realizing that things are usually not so black and white.
We've covered a lot of ground here. Interaction effects are everywhere, but they're tricky to see. We've talked about how hard it is to identify and measure them, and how our own biases can trip us up.
And we've explored why they matter so much for making better choices in all areas of our lives.
But I have a feeling we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore, right?
Oh, absolutely. This is just the beginning. We're hoping to spark some curiosity and open your mind to a new way of seeing things.
Yeah, it's like we've given you this new lens to look at the world through.
Okay, I like that.
Now it's about actually using it.
So how do we do that?
Start paying attention to those "it depends" moments you see in your own life.
You mean like those times when something that worked in one situation totally bombs in another? Or when, like, two people react in totally opposite ways to the same thing? Exactly. Instead of just thinking, well, people are weird, ask yourself, what else might be affecting this? What are those hidden interactions that could be shaping things?
So it's less about having all the answers and more about just being curious, right? Like being willing to dig a little deeper.
That's it. And once you start noticing these interaction effects, you'll be surprised how much complexity you uncover.
And then what? Like, what's the point of seeing all that complexity?
Well, understanding it can be really valuable. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're a manager trying to motivate your team.
Okay. Yeah,
You might think bonuses will lead to better performance.
that makes sense to me. Reward people for good work.
But what if the effectiveness of those bonuses actually depends on how much autonomy each person has? Some people love being independent, while others need more direction.
Oh, I see what you're saying. A bonus might be great for someone who'd like to take charge, but could feel kind of bad for someone who prefers to be told what to do.
Right. Interaction effects show us those one-size-fits-all solutions often don't work. You have to see the nuance, the "it depends."
So instead of just saying bonuses equal motivation, a good manager would think about each person's preferences and try a different approach depending on that.
Exactly. And this applies to way more than just management. Think about things like marketing, sales, even just understanding how you react to different situations. Knowing about interaction effects can help you ask better questions.
So instead of accepting simple explanations, we can start to think, okay, but what else could be going on here?
Yeah. It's about understanding that things are usually more complicated than they seem. And that's what we're hoping you'll take away from this deep dive. A new appreciation for all the different ways things can interact.
A reminder that the world isn't always black and white.
And hopefully it will motivate you to keep asking those questions, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.
Okay, so we've talked about these interaction effects. We know they're everywhere, but they're tough to spot. What's the takeaway for our listeners? Like, what should they do with this information?
Well, now you know they're out there, right? So start looking for them.
Like in our own lives.
Exactly. Pay attention to those "it depends" moments.
Okay, so like if I see something work in one situation, but then it totally fails in another.
Yeah. Or how about when you see two people react in totally different ways to, like, the same feedback?
Oh yeah, those are good
And
examples.
instead of just thinking, oh, people are just strange, take a second and think, what else could be going on here? What are those little interactions that might be affecting things?
So it's more about just being curious and asking questions than having all the answers.
Exactly. And once you start noticing these interaction effects, you might be surprised by what you find. It kind of opens your eyes to a whole new level of complexity.
And that complexity is actually a good thing.
It can be, because once you understand it, you can use it to make better decisions. You can start to see the world in a whole new way.
Kind of like the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah, but in a good way, right? Because that awareness can lead to some really amazing insights. And that's what this whole deep dive has been about, helping you see the world in a new way.
Reminding us that things are rarely as simple as they seem. So next time you're facing a tricky situation or you're just trying to make sense of the world around you, remember these interaction effects. Keep asking those questions, keep exploring, and who knows what you might discover. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.